Welcome, everyone. Ready to dive into something really fascinating. We're talking about the Gnostic Gospels today.
They weren't found in some dusty old library.
Oh.
Yeah, imagine in 1945, an Arab peasant digging for fertilizer just stumbles on a jar, and what's inside? Letter-bound books.
Wow, buried treasure.
Totally. Hidden for almost 1,600 years.
That's incredible. Makes you wonder why someone hid them in the first place.
Well, these Gospels, they offer a take on early Christianity, but it's different.
Different how?
It goes against what became the Orthodox view.
Like a challenge to the official story.
Exactly. And later we'll talk more about how they were considered heretical, how powerful figures in the church tried to suppress them.
Wow, so these weren't just some random scrolls.
No, they were seen as a real threat. And get this, the find included a copy of, well, the Gospel of Truth.
And that's significant
It
because...
was a text that people like Irenaeus, big names, they denounced it.
So someone risked a lot to hide these to make sure they survived?
Absolutely. Now, you're probably thinking, what are the Gnostic Gospels? Heck, what even is Gnosticism?
Yeah, break that down for us.
Even calling them Gnostic Gospels, some scholars would debate that. But for this deep dive, we'll use it just as shorthand.
Makes sense. So it sounds like we're talking about a whole different approach to spirituality.
Yeah, Gnosticism, it comes from the Greek gnosis, means insight, but like a deeper knowing, not just head knowledge and experience.
So more than just reading about it, it's about connecting with something, well, divine, right?
You got it. Direct, personal, and that's one thing that separates it from Orthodox Christianity, their emphasis on faith, on doctrine.
So it's about finding truth within, not just accepting what you're told.
You're catching on.
Hmm.
And yeah, I can see why the church might have been a bit, well, uncomfortable with that.
For sure. And you said it challenged some core ideas about God, even about salvation, right?
Absolutely. For Gnostics, knowing yourself, that was knowing God, blurred the lines. A Gnostic teacher, Theodotus, he said, "The Gnostic is one who has come to understand who we were and what we have become, where we were, whether we are hastening from what we are being released, what birth is and what is rebirth."
Wow, that's, well, a lot to process. I'm already rethinking what I thought I knew about early Christianity.
It's like opening a door to a hidden world.
And speaking of hidden worlds, you mentioned a different view of Jesus in these Gospels, right?
Yeah, he's often portrayed more as a guide to spiritual enlightenment, not so much focused on sin and saving people from it.
So not just a figure you worship, but someone who helps you find your own, well, inner light.
Exactly. And there's this really striking line in the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus says, "I am not your master. He who will drink from my mouth will become as I am. I myself shall become he, and the things that are hidden will be revealed to him."
Hold on, that's not the Jesus I learned about. It's like he's saying we can become one with the divine.
It's a radical idea, right? And we're just getting started. These texts, they question other things too, like the whole idea of sin and repenting for it.
So less about what we've done wrong, more about discovering some truth that's already inside us.
Right. Gnosticism, it's more about illusion versus enlightenment. It's interesting how it sounds a bit like, well, Eastern philosophies.
Yeah, I was thinking that focus on inner experience, it's not a Western idea.
Good point. Gnostic thought, it does share some things with those traditions. For example, there's this concept of God as, well, as a duality.
So not just one God, but two.
More like two aspects, masculine and feminine, seeking to unite.
That goes against the traditional view, right? One God, and he's definitely a he.
It's a huge idea with lots of implications. And one text, the Gospel of Philip, it kind of hints at this duality.
How so?
It describes Mary Magdalene as the companion of the Savior. And there's this line, "But Christ loved her more than all the disciples and used to kiss her often on her mouth."
Oh, wow. I bet that caused some controversy. Mary Magdalene is definitely not portrayed that way in the traditional story.
You're telling me. There are lots of different interpretations of that passage, but it does show her in a very different light compared to Orthodox Christianity.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the Gnostic emphasis on the feminine side of the divine.
It does. We've got so much to explore here. It feels like we're just scratching the surface.
It's like we've stumbled upon a treasure trove of lost wisdom.
That's a great way to put it. So where do we start? Maybe with a specific text.
Good idea. What would you recommend as a good entry point?
If you're looking for a place to begin, the Gospel of Thomas is a solid choice.
What's special about that one?
It's a bunch of sayings, like wisdom teachings, attributed to Jesus.
Yeah.
Some you might recognize, others are totally new.
Oh, like a secret collection of Jesus' teachings?
You could say that. And a lot of them are really cryptic, like those Zen koans we talked about earlier.
Hmm.
They make you think, you
Oh,
know?
intriguing. Give us an example.
All right, how about this? If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you.
Wow, that's deep. It's all about looking inside yourself, right? Self-discovery.
Exactly. And here's another. The kingdom of the Father is like a certain woman. She took a little leaven, concealed it in some dough, and made it into large loaves. Let him who has ears hear.
That's fascinating. It's like a riddle. It makes you think about what's really important.
Right, the Gnostic Gospels, they're all about that inner experience. Not blindly following rules, but waking up to something deeper inside.
Yeah, a totally different way of looking at things than the traditional emphasis on sin and needing to be redeemed.
You got it.
Hmm.
So the Gospel of Thomas, that's a good one to start with, but there's more, like the testimony of truth. And get this, it tells the Garden of Eden story.
We all know that one. Adam and Eve, the serpent, the apple.
But here's the twist. It's told from the serpent's point of view.
Really, that changes everything. The serpent is always the bad guy, tempting them.
Well, in some Gnostic texts, the serpent actually symbolizes wisdom.
Whoa, so instead of leading them astray, he's trying to teach them.
Yeah, trying to wake them up to their true selves.
Yeah,
Makes you think about whose story we're hearing, right?
for sure. And you mentioned another text, the thunder, perfect mind.
Oh yeah, that one's intense. It's a poem, but it's like this powerful feminine divine being is speaking.
Okay, that's different.
It's bold, full of contradictions, nothing like what you'd find in traditional Christian writings.
What kind of things does it say?
Think of lines like, "For I am the first and the last. I am the honored one and the scorned one. I am the whore and the holy one. I am the wife and the virgin. I am the barren one, and many are her sons. I am the silence that is incomprehensible. I am the utterance of my name."
Whoa, that's powerful stuff. It's this voice that includes everything, all opposites, not the traditional idea of God at all.
And that's the point. It highlights that Gnostic idea of the feminine aspect of the divine, something you don't see much in Orthodox Christianity.
This whole deep dive, it's making me rethink everything I thought I knew about early Christianity. It's like we've unearthed a hidden library of wisdom.
Exactly. And it reminds us that the story we're usually told, it's not the only one. There's always more to discover.
I can't wait to dive deeper. It's wild to think someone hid those books, maybe hoping they'd be found someday.
Right. Or maybe trying to protect that knowledge forever like a time capsule.
Either way, it says a lot about how dangerous these texts were seen.
It really does. If someone was willing to risk their life, they must have believed in these Gospels.
So let's talk about that danger. Why were these texts seen as such a threat?
Remember how Gnosticism focuses on self-knowledge? How it blurs the line between us and the divine?
Yeah, that's pretty different from traditional Christianity.
Well, that idea went against the early church. They were trying to establish their authority, focusing on faith, obedience, one God up in heaven.
So the Gnostic view was like a challenge to their power.
Exactly. People like Irenaeus, Hippolytus, they labeled Gnosticism as heresy, a direct attack on their authority. They really tried to stamp it out.
It's like they were the thought police, deciding what people were allowed to believe.
You could say that. And they didn't just talk, they actually tried to destroy these texts.
Wow, it's a miracle the Nag Hammadi Library survived at all.
It really is. Makes you wonder how many other voices, how many other ways of thinking were lost because of this kind of suppression.
That's kind of a scary thought. But thankfully, we have these texts, this window, into a different way of understanding early Christianity.
And it's full of surprises, like how the Gospel of Philip portrays Mary Magdalene.
Yeah, she's a much more central figure in some of these Gospels, right?
Totally. In the Gospel of Philip, she's not just some follower. She's a close companion of Jesus, his confidant. She receives his teachings, special teachings that he doesn't give to anyone else.
It's like we're finally hearing her side of the story, seeing her as a wise and important figure.
Exactly. And it's not just Mary Magdalene who gets a different interpretation. Even the serpent in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, he's usually the bad guy tempting Adam and Eve.
Right, that classic villain. But in some Gnostic texts, he's actually a symbol of wisdom.
Wait, the serpent represents wisdom. That's the opposite of what we're usually taught.
It is. Gnosticism loves to challenge our assumptions. In this view, the serpent is trying to help Adam and Eve to wake them up to their true nature.
So instead of being tricked into sin, they're actually being guided towards knowledge.
That's one way to look at it. It really makes you question the traditional story, doesn't it?
Definitely. It's like they're saying, don't just believe what you're told, think for yourself.
That's a powerful message, and it's one that resonates with people even today.
Absolutely. Okay, let's dive back into some of those specific texts. The Gospel of Thomas, with all those sayings of Jesus, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's really unique. It presents Jesus less as a savior figure and more as a guide, a teacher who's pointing the way towards self-discovery.
Those sayings are pretty cryptic, though, like riddles. It's not always clear what they mean.
That's true. They're like those Zen koans we talked about, meant to make you think, to nudge you towards your own understanding.
Right, they don't just give you the answer, they make you work for it.
Exactly. Remember that one. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you.
Yeah, that one really sticks with you.
It's about confronting those hidden parts of ourselves, the good and the bad, to really grow spiritually.
Makes sense. What other sayings from the Gospel of Thomas stand out to you?
Well, there's this one. The kingdom of the Father is within you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will realize that you are the children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, then you dwell in poverty, and you are poverty.
I like that one. It's all about knowing yourself, seeing that spark of the divine within.
Right. And that connects back to the idea of God as a duality, that masculine and feminine aspect. It's not just about a God out there somewhere. It's about recognizing that divine potential within us.
It's a beautiful idea. So we've got the Gospel of Thomas, we've got the Gospel of Philip. What other texts should we check out from the Nag Hammadi Library?
Oh, we can't forget it, but the testimony of truth.
Mhm.
The one that tells the Garden of Eden story from the serpent's point of view?
Oh, yeah, that one. It really flips the script on the traditional narrative.
For sure. Instead of being the deceiver, the serpent becomes this wise figure trying to awaken Adam and Eve to their true nature.
So knowledge, even forbidden knowledge, can be a good thing.
That's the idea. It challenges us to look beyond simple good versus evil, to consider that there might be more to the story than we think.
It's like those Gnostic texts are saying, don't be afraid to question things, to explore different perspectives.
Exactly. And that's what makes them so relevant even today.
Okay, we're running out of time, but we can't leave out the second treatise of the great Seth.
Oh, good one. That text offers a really unique perspective on Jesus and his mission. It's written from the perspective of Seth, Adam and Eve's third son.
Wow, so it's like a whole different take on the biblical story.
It is. In this text, Jesus is this divine being who descended from heaven to awaken humanity to its true spiritual nature.
Like a cosmic superhero coming to save us from ourselves.
Kind of.
Yeah.
The main point is that we're all inherently divine. We've just forgotten our true selves.
It's a powerful message of hope that we have the potential to reconnect with that divine spark within.
Absolutely. And that idea runs throughout the Gnostic Gospels. It's all about looking within, recognizing that we're not just these limited material beings.
So it's not about worshiping an external god, it's about realizing our own divinity.
Exactly. And speaking of powerful women, we can't forget about the Gospel of Mary.
Oh yeah, this one gives us a glimpse into the role of women in early Christianity.
Right. Mary Magdalene takes center stage in this gospel. She's not just a follower. She's a wise and insightful disciple who receives special teachings from Jesus.
It's like we're finally seeing her true potential as a spiritual leader and teacher.
You got it. And her teachings, they're all about inner knowledge, spiritual awakening, transcending the material world. All those core Gnostic themes.
It's like a vision of a more inclusive and equal early Christian community, one where women had a much bigger role.
Absolutely. The Gospel of Mary makes us think about how women's voices have been silenced throughout history and how important it is to recognize the diversity of perspectives that were present in early Christianity.
This is mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
The Gnostic Gospels offer such a rich and complex view of spirituality, and we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right? But we've at least opened the door to this amazing world of alternative Christian thought. It's a journey worth taking for anyone who wants to understand spirituality, the nature of reality, and the potential for transformation that exists within each of us.
I totally agree. These Gnostic Gospels, it's like finding a secret library, a whole different view of early Christianity.
It's true, we're uncovering these lost voices, realizing how many different ideas were circulating back then.
Right. So, for this last part, let's dig into some of the texts we haven't talked about much yet.
There are so many. Where do we even begin? Oh, how about the Zostrianos? That's a wild one.
Okay, so it's Trianos. Sounds mysterious already. What's so special about it?
Well, it's definitely not your typical Bible story. It's more like, imagine a mystical journey.
A journey.
Yeah, through all these different levels of reality, meeting divine beings, gaining secret knowledge along the way.
Sounds kind of like a spiritual sci-fi adventure.
Yeah. Think celestial realms, divine emanations, hidden dimensions, the whole works.
Wow, so it's trying to explain the whole universe, where it came from, how it works, but from a spiritual perspective.
Exactly. It's a whole cosmology, a map of the spiritual universe, way beyond what we normally think about.
It's like a guidebook for a spiritual quest, leading to a deeper understanding of the divine and our place in it all.
You got it. And it shows how much Gnostics were fascinated by hidden knowledge, by direct experiences that go beyond the material world.
This whole conversation is making me realize how much we just accept the usual stories we're told about history, about spirituality.
It's true. The Nag Hammadi Library, it really shook things up. It shows that early Christianity was full of different ideas, competing narratives, voices that were silenced.
Makes you wonder what else has been lost. What other perspectives have we missed out on?
It's a good question. And it shows how important it is to keep an open mind, question what we think we know, and look for those different viewpoints.
Absolutely. Okay, before we wrap up, I'm curious, what's the most surprising thing you've learned from exploring the Gnostic Gospels? What really stood out to you?
That's a tough one. I think for me, it's realizing how early Christianity wasn't just one thing. It wasn't this monolithic, unified belief system.
Right, we tend to think of it that way, but these texts show it was much more diverse.
Exactly. There were all these different beliefs, practices, interpretations, people challenging the dominant view. And that diversity, that's something to be celebrated, not suppressed.
Yeah, it's a great reminder that there's always more than one way to understand things, and that looking at things from different perspectives can really enrich our own spiritual journey.
Couldn't agree more. These texts, they encourage us to be curious, to explore, to keep an open mind.
Well, everyone, we've come to the end of our deep dive into the Gnostic Gospels. It's been quite a journey.
We've explored some really fascinating ideas, challenged some assumptions, and hopefully opened your eyes to a different side of early Christianity.
It's been amazing. So if you're feeling inspired to learn more, remember there are tons of resources out there. Don't hesitate to dive in and see what resonates with you.
Yeah, keep searching, keep questioning, keep exploring.
Until next time, happy diving.